Malik Murphy and Texas football handle business against BYU, how the start of the NBA season has panned out so far, and a dive into how some college football players are taking on a popular at-home game. All this and more coming up on College Pressbox.
Good evening and welcome to College Pressbox. I'm your host Janelle Tanguma and he's Robert Gonsoulin. We have a great show coming up and to recap quite literally everything. Just a quick reminder before we get started here that we are sponsored by Cap Metro, Austin's very own regional public transportation provider, connecting you to work, school, play, and more. Find your ride at capmetro.org.
Starting things off, the Longhorns came back home to play at DKR for the first time in the month of October on Saturday. They faced new Big 12 opponent BYU, where redshirt freshman Malik Murphy got the start, filling in for an injured Quinn Ewers. Let's jump into the action. Longhorns took the win over here against BYU. Here's Xavier Worthy fielding it at about the 30-yard line, going straight up the middle. Daylight. Worthy calls his own number on this punt return here. That's his first punt return for a touchdown of the season as the Longhorns go up by 7. Here's Malik Murphy next, taking the ball on offense, dumping out a pass straight up the middle. Kind of a lob, but it's brought in by Jatavion Sanders. He kind of has a thing for one-handed catches so far this season. But here is Murphy again, trying to avoid the pressure, and he kind of throws the ball into no man's land, picked off by BYU's Crew Wakely, where he would bring it all the way down to about the 25-ish yard line. But then here's Keaton Slovis for BYU again here, and it's picked off, tipped by Jade Barron and picked off by Terrence Brooks, where he's going to bring this one down all the way almost to the Texas' 25-yard line. May as well call him Air Jade at this point, as we should say. 3rd and 4 for Texas. Here's Malik Murphy to a quick out to Jonathan Brooks for the first down. 1st and goal to go. The handoff to Brooks as he punches it in for his first score of the game. The Longhorns would be leading 14-0. Fast forward to the middle of the second quarter. Here's Slovis rolling it out to the right, calling his own number. Gets almost flipped before he's brought down. Sets up the 24-yard field goal for BYU's first points of the game. Cougars still on offense right here. Throws it all the way downfield. Throws it all the way downfield. A huge reception for the Cougars right here. That sets up their second field goal of the game. The score is now 21-6. Longhorns back on offense. Murphy throwing it downfield. Slovis downfield. Picked off by Michael Taff as he runs it all the way back. That is his second interception in 2 games. Longhorns now up by 15. And then here is Jaden Blue calling his own number out to the left. And he's going to score this one. The Longhorns are going to take home this one 35-6. Longhorns improve to 4-1 in Big 12 play as they prepare for a Kansas State matchup next weekend.
Our very own TJ Krylowitz and Alyssa King covered the game at DKR Stadium. Let's take a look at what they had to say.
The Texas Longhorns defeated the BYU Cougars this afternoon with the score of 35-6. The Longhorns starting QB Quinn Ewers unfortunately was out due to injury, but no worries. Malik Murphy took care of business and handled business as usual. The Horns put up 21 over the Cougars in the first half. Pass game was smooth, but the run game was specifically good. Shout out Jonathan Brooks for that one. The Cougars walked away with just 3 going into the half. The game was a battle of the QBs. We saw that with more than 3 turnovers the entire game, most of them being fumbles and an interception. The Horns looked sturdy the entire second half, bringing in 35 points for the Horns. With Texas now 7-1, I'm Alyssa King with TSTV Sports.
Joining us now is our football analyst, Jamie Tanguma. Thank you for joining us, Jamie.
Pleasure to be here, Robert. I'm excited to talk about Texas football, especially when it's after a win. We have a lot to discuss looking at a new QB and having only 4 Texas football games left. Each of those will be crucial if the Longhorns want to appear in the division championship and make the playoffs.
Well, let's start with Malik Murphy's first game as a Longhorn. What can you say about his performance against BYU?
I think Murphy had a great game, despite some mistakes early on. People might have been worried with Ewers being out with an injury that the redshirt freshman wasn't ready for the main stage, but he proved them wrong on Saturday. He did have two turnovers in the first half that could have been game changers, but his teammates and just the stacked talent of this team provided enough cushion for mistakes to be made. BYU did not score any touchdowns against the Longhorns, so putting the ball back in the hands of the BYU offense wasn't detrimental. Although a stronger offense is going to take those turnovers and turn it into touchdowns. Now, if the game had gotten away from Texas, I think a lot of people would have pointed fingers at Murphy for his mistakes. They were the mistakes of someone who was eager to prove himself, and that led to poor decisions. I mean, in the first quarter, that snap, it just didn't look like he was ready for it, and when blue jerseys were coming his way looking for a sack, he threw the ball away to no receivers right in the hands of BYU. I think this is just inexperience. He should have taken the sack on the second down and kept possession in Texas. It would have been for a loss of yards, but that interception was almost a pick six had the flag not been thrown and Brooks not make that tackle at the 10. Again, in the second quarter, I think it was the fear of the sack that caused him to fumble. After those mistakes, I think any other quarterback in his position and pressure would have shut down, but Murphy kept his composure, which is what made him stand out in this game. Later in the second quarter, after his fumble, he threw a beautiful 30-yard pass to A.D. Mitchell in the end zone. The accuracy, the strength, the timing, it was all there. Even after a rocky start, he ended the game 16 out of 25, throwing 170 yards, throwing 2 touchdown passes both to Mitchell. It's not a bad start for Murphy. I think time will only make him better. He's likely to start in the next game as the status of Ewers' return is still not confirmed, but I think Texas is in good hands with their backup QB. He just needs to clean up those mistakes, but again, with game time, I think those nerves will go away.
So, speaking of Ewers, do you think Texas needs him back if they want any shot at the division championship?
I think what Texas needs and what they're going to get are two different things. Of course, a healthy Ewers at 100% would greatly improve their chances to possibly get like a Red River rematch with Oklahoma in the championship. But will Ewers return at 100%? Probably not. The injury he has sustained is in his throwing shoulder, and he's likely not getting practice reps, which I think would be a good call. They don't want to risk any bigger injury. So being out for a week, maybe 2, maybe longer, what shape will he be in when he returns? I think it's likely he'll be at 90% at best. But even Quinn Ewers at 90% is better than most, and the Longhorns have a lot of talent on the offense with Xavier Worthy, Jonathan Brooks, Adonai Mitchell, and Jatavion Sanders. This team can do it all. They can throw when they need to, and they can run when they need to, and I think that's going to be the case going forward.
Well, the Longhorns have only 4 games left in the season. Which teams ahead are going to give Texas the biggest fight?
I expect that the Longhorns will have to work for it on Saturday against Kansas State. Their offense has been on a roll. They've won the past 3 games, averaging 39 points in those games. I think Texas defense needs to limit the 4th down conversions. We saw 2 against BYU, and they'll need to cover the Kansas receivers better. On the offense, they need to deliver in the red zone. Against BYU, they went to the red zone 5 times and only scored twice. Two of those times, they were within the 5 and couldn't get a touchdown. Sarkisian has expressed his level of frustration in finishing in the red zone. It has been one of their weakest points this season, and I think in these next few games, every possible touchdown is going to count. After Kansas State, they're going to meet TCU in Fort Worth, Iowa State at Iowa, and Texas Tech back in Austin. I think each of those are worthy competitors, and Texas is going to have to fight for every win going forward.
What a great analysis, Jamie. Thank you so much. They will have to fight for it as they go. But when we come back, we talk about the NBA. It's going to be great. You will not want to miss this one.
Welcome back to College Pressbox. The NBA is finally back, and here to inform us on the 3 Texas squads in the association is our very own Ronan Benford. Ronan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so happy to be here.
Awesome. So as much as we'd like to hear all about the NBA, let's start at home. What can you tell us about these Texas teams so far?
All right. The team records are as follows. The Dallas Mavericks have gone 2-0. The San Antonio Spurs are 1-2, and the Houston Rockets are currently winless at 0-3. The Spurs and Mavs opened against one another. Dallas took the road win at 126-119. Dallas has since went on to win against the Brooklyn Nets in a shootout, relying on Luka Doncic to carry the team. After the season opener, the Spurs won in an overtime game against the Rockets, then were blown out by the Clippers. The Rockets lost their opener to the Magic by 30. They followed that with the aforementioned overtime loss to the Spurs and rounded out their first 3 games with yet another loss to the Warriors. All 3 teams have looked seriously porous on defense, with the Mavs, Rockets, and Spurs ranking 23rd, 24th, and 25th respectively in defensive rating, or points allowed by the opponent. However, the Mavs have been very strong offensively, ranking 2nd in the league for points scored. Spurs are in the middle of the pack at 18th. The Rockets have have been scoring the ball abysmally, coming in 2nd to last in points scored. Their average differential has been a negative 14 points.
Wow, that is not great on the defense, but hopefully the offense is making up for it. So based on what you've seen so far, who would you say are the standout players in these teams?
With Dallas, their standout player is, of course, going to be Luka Doncic. He's been playing like the top 5 player that he's been for the last 3 years. He opened the season with a 30-point triple-double and followed that performance with a 49-point performance, including one of the most ridiculous shots I have ever seen. In the closing moments of a tied game between Mavs and the Brooklyn Nets, he threw a 30-foot hook shot over double coverage that hit the backboard and banked in. Luka could maybe potentially even make an MVP run this season, but I think that largely depends on the team success of the Mavs. For the Spurs, yet again, no surprise here, the standout player has been Victor Wembanyama. His early performances have been okay. He's been averaging 15.7 points per game, 1.7 blocks and steals. He's been putting up decent numbers. The main thing that has limited his production, though, is his minutes. Through the opening 3 games, he's only been averaging 27 minutes. The lower minutes in the first game makes sense as he got into foul trouble early, but 31 minutes in an overtime game and 26 minutes even in a blowout loss both seem very low for the talent that Greg Popovich is looking to develop. Nonetheless, Wemby has had some late-game heroics, showing up big in the 4th against the Mavs and the Rockets. He continues to be a must-watch as he grows. For the Rockets, I had a bit of a difficult time, but I chose the standout player to be Dillon Brooks. Not for production or quality, but as an indication of the rest of his team. They seem to be trying their hardest, but not getting any of the success they want. Dillon Brooks, for example, is hounding ball handlers, but he's getting cooked by Steph Curry. Amen Thompson has dished the ball well, gotten plenty of assists, but can't score over 10 points. Jalen Green can score and shoots willingly, but is only 25% beyond the arc. Houston has had flashes of quality that have consistently only led to L's.
That's great analysis, Ronan. It's early, but what are the projections for these teams throughout the rest of the season?
As you said, it's early, and it's important to keep that in mind even as you're listening to me. Anything can happen in an 82-game season. Injury, trades, changes in lineups, and improvement in chemistry can drastically affect the outcome of a season. But with all that being said, we are looking at 3 teams with very different expectations. Let's start at the bottom with the Rockets. Most analysts projected them to be one of the worst teams in the association, and they are living right up to those expectations. They are one of 4 teams to remain winless so far. Yes, one game was close, being decided by 3 points in overtime, but the other 2 weren't particularly. The Rockets lost their opener by 30 points and had some real lowlights in the recent loss against the Warriors. They remain a young team at the 4th lowest age in the league, but it doesn't seem as if those young players are improving. They now have some vets in Dillon Brooks and Fred VanVleet to lead them, but even these players aren't known for their great habits. They're likely going to be a lottery team for the 4th year in a row. Anything better than that will be a very pleasant surprise for anyone in Houston. The Spurs also don't have high expectations, but with the enormous weight of potential that Wembanyama has, they can afford a bad season and even a bad season next year. Naturally, an improvement within the team and the players around Victor would be great. However, what Spurs fans should be looking for is improvement in their number 1 overall draft. If Wembanyama gets better, then the entire team's chances at doing anything in the offseason also get better. A high-end expectation for the Spurs is them consistently flirting with the play-in. If they manage to make it past that, then that will be a major success to show that their championship expectations are closer than they'd anticipated. Now, on to the only team in Texas with real postseason aspirations, the Dallas Mavericks. They've won both of their games so far, but continue to be highly reliant on Doncic's heroics. If he has an out-of-this-world game, then the Mavs are likely to win. Anything less than that from him, and a loss is surely going to follow. The Mavs made many offseason moves, but most notably acquired Grant Williams and drafted Derek Lively II. Dallas will be highly reliant on them to bolster their defense, which, as I mentioned earlier, to this point in the season is in the bottom half of the league. Last season at the trade deadline, they also got Kyrie Irving, who hasn't lived up to expectations so far. While he's been good in clutch situations, he's averaged only 39% from the field and under 17% from 3 on high volume. If his shot begins to fall, then the Mavs' success can only further improve. Ultimately, they're looking to make some postseason run, with high-end estimations of ending their season around the 6 to 8 seed in a highly competitive Western Conference.
Wow. Spoken like a true NBA fan, I will be looking for your analysis come playoffs, but until then, coming up, we have Justin Todd will take us through the highlights of Texas football players not playing football, playing chess.
Welcome back into College Pressbox. Today I'm joined by Justin Todd, who is, is that right, our chess analyst?
That is absolutely right, Robert. I am here today to talk about a great event run by chess.com called Blitz Champs, where they go to different college football teams and pull 8 players for a head-to-head chess tournament. Here is the lineup for Texas. Notably, freshman lineman Robert Sweeney and senior punter Ryan Sanborn came into the contest with some existing online chess experience, while over half the field came in with no rating. The format for the tournament was blitz chess with a 5-minute clock in 0-second increment, so these games are fast and they go best of 4 with 2.5 points needed to secure a victory. And without further ado, let's get into the action. Round 1, we immediately see issues with covering the F2 and F7 squares, which are naturally weak due to the king being the only piece defending them. In the matchup between Hayden Conner and Jahdae Barron, Conner simply dominated, picking up wins in just over 60 seconds and then in 43 seconds, needing just 4 moves to checkmate Barron. In addition, Sanborn started out strong from a relatively stable position. Christian Jones just makes blunder after blunder, losing pieces left and right, and Sanborn capitalizes. He takes control of the game and advances to round 2. The entire first round was pretty one-sided, with all 4 matchups ending in shutouts. This round really showed who the true chess players were out of the bunch. One thing I also want to highlight here, the smack talk was immaculate. Players could set to their background to be whatever they wanted, and many took advantage of the opportunity to put up embarrassing photos of their opponents. We see it all throughout the tourney, so keep your eye on it as we head to the semifinals. Here we saw a much higher level of play, and in the first matchup, Sweeney advanced with relative ease. He played quick, accurate chess, and as the highest rated player going in, he advances to the finals. On the other side, Sanborn had a bit of trouble on his hands with Hayden Conner. Tied up at 1-1, he had a great position, but found himself in a bit of a time crunch. Moves were flying all across the board, and Sanborn somehow finds a way to hold on, as we actually see Hayden Conner lose on time. Sanborn would go on to win the next game as well, and he would advance to the finals, where he took on none other than Robert Sweeney. As we see, moves are flying all over the place right now, and the clock just runs out. Picking up in that final game, or in the final match of the tournament, we go to Sweeney versus Sanborn. Sweeney came out of the gate pretty strong, and he played an Italian game, as we'll see in a moment, which morphed into a sort of pseudo-fried liver variation. However, this move order just isn't very accurate, so Sanborn takes advantage in the opening. As we see, his king is a little bit open. Sanborn is not in a bad place, but with that queen move, Sweeney is just going to lash out. After a bit of simplification, we're going to get queen takes with check, where he secures a path to the win. Heading to game 4, Sweeney is in a must-win situation with the black pieces. Sanborn also opts for the Italian game this time, but he makes a mistake early on, losing a pawn and jeopardizing his king's safety. Sweeney continues to build up momentum as he goes, and after a blunder from Sanborn, takes the game. This leads us to a tiebreak, where players only get 3 minutes apiece, with only one emerging as the champion. Sanborn in this game, surprisingly, goes straight back to the Italian opening. This time, it's Sweeney who hangs a pawn, though. Sanborn capitalizes, creating some winning chances, but this position is still relatively stable. Just a few moves later, though, we're going to see him lose a bit of control and hang his queen after playing his pawn up there. Sweeney looks, checks it out. What's he going to do? He doesn't see the move and plays the pawn up, missing a chance to take the game and the match. As we move on, we see Sanborn take advantage of this, and in the end, he takes the win, the game, the match, and the tournament. Here are your final standings overall. I mean, this tournament was an absolute joy to see happen. The ups and downs of low-level chess are like a roller coaster that I can't wait to ride one more time.
Thank you for that, Justin. When we return, we'll take a look at the past week in Longhorn sports. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
8, 7, 6.
Number 5 volleyball sweeps number 20 Baylor, improving 16-3 overall and 11-0 in conference play. This win would be the Longhorns' 72nd consecutive Big 12 home win. Madison Skinner finished with 18 kills, while Ella Swindle would have her 6th double-digit of the season with 30 assists and 10 digs.
Cindy Sue of the Texas women's golf team took home the individual title of the World Amateur Championship on Saturday.
Number 6, men's cross country finishes 3rd at the Big 12 Championships. The team scored 70 points, and they're going to compete in their next meet, the South Central Regional for the NCAAs, on November 10th. Heading into this week for Longhorn sports, on Thursday, November 2nd, volleyball takes on West Virginia in Morgantown at 5 p.m. on ESPN+. Meanwhile, women's basketball takes on Midwestern State in an exhibition game. That's going to be at 7 on the Longhorn Network. Fast forward to Friday, volleyball's playing again against West Virginia at 4 on ESPN+ again. And then on Saturday, football is back at home hosting Kansas State 11 a.m. on Fox.
That'll do it for this week's episode of College Pressbox. Thank you to everybody for tuning in, and thank you to everyone in our back room, including our executive producer, Jason Conander. Don't forget to tune into our other shows this week, like College Crossfire on Wednesday at 9, and then a 1-0 sports show at Friday at 10. That's it for me. I'm Janelle Tanguma, and he's Robert Gonsoulin. For TSTV Sports, have a great night.